What if it turned out that stress on your cells was more of a problem than insulin resistance? Additionally, your insulin resistance would improve if there was a substance that reduced the strain on the cells. What if the blood sugar roller coaster would entirely calm down just by focusing on an area of the cell that is typically ignored? You see, it's not only that the cell isn't using glucose or sugar correctly. It is possible that excessive stress is the cause of your insulin resistance. We don't really examine it since it's at a deep mitochondrial level. The majority of people assume that TMG or trimethylcene is only used to lower homodyne, or perhaps to aid in bodybuilding or weight loss. However, the true magic, the force that genuinely transforms your metabolic health, is taking place deep within your cells. Your mitochondria's instructions are being entirely rewritten. You will need to comprehend the relationship between TMG, the mitochondria, and glucose, so stay with me and we will break through all the clutter in today's deep dive. We will examine the direct evidence first, the findings of research on TMG and its direct impact on insulin resistance in humans and animals. Next, we will investigate 3 potent hidden mechanisms. These are the true game changers, such as how TMG literally rebuilds and boosts your cellular power plants and influences the expression of insulin in your DNA, how it triggers your body's most crucial metabolic pathway, and lastly, I'll give you the hands-on, nonsensical instructions on how to use this stuff. Let's get the science straight and get started. The general health of 10% off Timeline Nutrition's MitoPure, the mitochondria also affects mitochondrial health. Below, I've included a link to a resource called Timeline Longevity. The primary source of what is known as MitoPure urolithin A is Timeline Longevity. Thus, urolithin A promotes homophagy, a process that occurs in the mitochondria. As a result, it permits the mitochondria to undergo autophagy, a type of cellular recycling that is exclusive to the mitochondria. We use fuel more efficiently when we have more functional, healthy mitochondria. We feel better. Most likely, we shed more fat. Because the mitochondria are more than just the cell's power source, everything comes together. I've included the URL below so you can give urolithin a try. This is fascinating stuff. Only a small percentage of people are able to convert the pomegranates into useful urolithin, despite the fact that it is derived from them. Timeline Nutrition has done the research and developed this incredible product. You can save 10% by clicking the link below. It is located directly beneath this video in the first line of the description. Let's dive right into the facts and examine how TMG affects insulin resistance. We must consider the complete picture when examining how something affects blood sugar. All right? Thus, we move beyond the lab and into real people. Therefore, Frontiers in Nutrition published an intriguing study. Thus, it examined this from 2 perspectives. Initially, they used mice and fed them a diet heavy in fat. It is the type that consistently results in mice gaining weight and developing insulin resistance. They discovered that the mice on a high-fat diet had TMG levels that were 50% lower. This chemical is what we are discussing today. They therefore have 50% less of this in their blood and liver. This indicates that the body's natural TMG levels are depleted when metabolic stress is present. Here's the cool bit, though. In addition to restoring their levels, the mice's glucose tolerance and overall insulin resistance were markedly improved when they received extra TMG. And that is an exact statement from the research. How does it accomplish this then? The molecular level is reached. And when you try to use it, this will be helpful. 2 extremely important signaling proteins are activated by TMG, all right? They are hence known as IRS1 and AKT. Thus, these resemble substrates for insulin receptors. Let me explain what I mean by that. Imagine your cells as a locked door to a house. Insulin is similar to a key. However, it won't function if the receptor appears to be rusted and malfunctioning. TMG enters the picture and effectively lubricates that lock. It is similar to a locksmith, and it enables the other proteins, including insulin receptor 1, to open the door and let glucose in through a backdoor mechanism that hasn't been functioning. When they tested TMG on human cells, they observed the same process in action. That concludes the research on mice and petri dishes. However, what about folks who are alive and breathing? Because human RCTs are what we always want to witness. The Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism published a clinical trial. Thus, TMG was administered to a group of individuals with prediabetes for a duration of 12 weeks. The findings were quite nuanced and encouraging. Thus, it had a tendency to lower fasting blood sugar levels. In the field of clinical science, tended to may not sound like a home run, but it's a very positive signal, and it gets much better as time goes on, because this is the important discovery. After giving them a load of glucose, TMG supplementation dramatically decreased the insulin area under the curve. In human terms, what does that mean? For you, what does that mean? What impact does this have on your insulin resistance? It implies that your body can produce less insulin to accomplish the task at hand when you are confronted with a spike in blood sugar. They had a more effective system. It's similar to using less gas to travel the same distance. Simply said, your engine is performing better. The lesson here is that TMG isn't a panacea that will instantly cure insulin resistance or diabetes. However, there is compelling evidence that it enhances the effectiveness of your insulin system, which is crucial for addressing insulin resistance as well as metabolic and mitochondrial dysfunction. This is enormous. 3 mechanisms. Since this is interesting material, let's now discuss these hidden mechanisms. Thus, this is much more than simply basic signaling. TMG, then, is a methyl donor, correct? Think of methyl groups as little sticky notes in molecules. They are used by your body to mark DNA and instruct a gene to either speak out or remain silent. This is known as epigenetics. I've made numerous videos on this topic and previously featured some truly amazing experts on my channel. Thus, you're managing your genes without modifying the genetic code itself. You're persuading people to take alternative actions. It's similar to how lifestyle choices alter genes. However, what is the real connection between insulin and you? A study has been published in the journal POS 1. It was discovered that the methylation process has a major role in controlling the promoter area of your insulin gene, which is similar to the on switch. Additionally, it suppresses the expression of the insulin gene by about 90% when methyl groups are attached. This implies that you are literally influencing your insulin resistance by about 100% when these methyl groups are linked. Wait a minute, is probably what you're thinking. In reality, why would I want to inhibit my insulin gene? I need it to work, don't I? That's the crucial element, then turning it off isn't really the point. It has to do with equilibrium. Your pancreatic beta cells are essentially in a panic when you have insulin resistance. They're putting in extra hours. In an attempt to convey the message, they are releasing an increasing amount of insulin, which ultimately results in malfunction and fatigue. Thus, TMG contributes these additional methyl groups and aids in the development of what is known as anepigenetic equilibrium. Thus, it aids in adjusting and fine-tuning the insulin response to improve its functionality. You don't want a fire hose of insulin every time you eat. For instance, you want a sprinkler system that is quiet, efficient, and under control. To prevent an insulin spike after eating a small piece of potato or whatever, TMG installs a sprinkler. Let's discuss the second hidden process, though this is a huge one for mitochondrial supercharging. Since you saw my channel, you are aware of my strong belief that the mitochondria are the primary cause of nearly all metabolic disorders. These, in a sense, are your cell's power plants or battery. Nothing else will function if your power plants are broken and the batter isn't. It's simple. TMG's function becomes quite powerful at this. A very recent study has been published in the Journal of Biological Chemistry. It revealed some fascinating impacts of TMG on the genuine function of mitochondria. Initially, TMG enhanced the activity of complex 1 and complex 4. In the mitochondria's electron transport chain, this is the initial and final step in functions as a kind of assembly line inside your mitochondria, burning glucose and fat to produce ATP, or your body's energy. In essence, TMG is modernizing that manufacturing line's equipment to increase its speed and efficiency. Second, TMG ultimately results in an increase in cellular NAD. NAD is also an essential coenzyme. I'm sure you've heard about NAD supplements. Functions similarly to the energy system's main battery. You're dead in the water. Without NAD, you essentially die. Third, and this is my favorite part, they discovered that longer, more linked mitochondria developed as a result of extended TMG therapy. We refer to this process as mitochondrial fusion. Thus, your cell turns a dozen tiny, ineffective, smoky campfires into a single, potent furnace that burns. Therefore, you don't want a bunch of small campfires with subpar wood if you're attempting to generate heat. You desire a furnace that is clean. In the end, these fused mitochondria are far more resilient to oxidative stress damage and are more effective at producing energy. This brings us to the last point. Reactive oxygen species and oxidative stress were reduced after TMG therapy. Your cells are harmed by that metabolic type of smoke or exhaust, particularly if you have insulin resistance. The mitochondria create less toxic pollutants because they are functioning so well and neatly. This is a huge success for diabetes, insulin resistance, and even fat loss in addition to overall metabolic health. However, there is an additional hidden mechanism that is not discussed. Alright, so this is kind of the master switch component. After everything is connected and makes sense, we'll discuss how to apply this information. So let's use this last puzzle piece to put everything together, shall we? I've previously discussed this path. It's known as AMPK. AMK is hence the primary modulator of cellular energy. The master switch is it. We burn fat when it's on. We are storing energy when it is off. You're turning on the switch when you fast or engage in vigorous exercise. Thus, AMPK activation instructs your body to perform 3 essential functions. First, it begins burning fat instead of storing it. Secondly, it draws glucose into your cells from the bloodstream. Thirdly, it causes the production of improved mitochondria, which is something that people tend to forget. Better mitochondria are required. For metabolic flexibility, it is the most crucial switch. Additionally, a wicked study published in the Journal of Animal Science and Biotechnology discovered that TMG supplementation dramatically raised AMK expression. It's sending a clear signal to your body to enter that effective mode of burning sugar and fat without requiring you to fast. Here's the crucial link, though. Thus, it's crucial to know if you've heard of NAD before. We'll briefly discuss it, so you understand what it means, since it's crucial, and emphasizes how important it is to fully understand the mechanisms before utilizing this thing to treat insulin resistance. Your body breaks down this NAD and battery pack as it uses it. Therefore, NAD is used in every bodily activity, such as blinking your eyes or thinking. It breaks it down, and the waste product needs to be neutralized and removed from the body. Alright? Therefore, the molecule that performs this escorting is a methyl group just by virtue of surviving. Therefore, a methyl group is used in every molecule of NMN, NR supplements or NAD that is used. Thus, you are actively depleting the methyl pool in your body. Additionally, you create a bottleneck that causes a plethora of other issues if you don't replenish this methyl pool. The best method for replenishing and donating that methyl pool is TMG, which will enable your battery pack and NAD cycle to function properly. This is really essential, guys. It's all of this. However, it becomes more powerful. TMG is well known for reducing homocysteine, an inflammatory substance. Alright, we discussed that briefly before. What do elevated homocysteine levels do, though? The enzymes your body requires to produce its own NAD are inhibited by them. What does TMG stand to gain from this? It indicates that TMG delivers a potent 1-2 punch to you. With the help of supplements, if you take any, it removes the homocysteine that is clogging your battery pack and supplies the methyl groups required to recycle the battery pack. Thus, it's a really potent combination. How to use TMG? What about the pragmatic and real-world use, though? What is the real way to use TMG? Who is it for, first of all? Alright, TMG is particularly effective if you have any insulin resistance. Well, it's a great tool for anyone on a low-carb or ketogenic diet because it increases this metabolic flexibility, regardless of whether you have type 2 diabetes or are just realizing that you don't handle carbohydrates as well as you used to. You feel exhausted and drowsy. And I would almost say that utilizing TMG is necessary if you're taking any NAD precursors, such as NMN or NR, or if you're exercising a lot and depleting them. Regarding doses, the human research we reviewed use a conservative range, although the typical effective dose is one that falls between 1,500 and 3,000 mmol daily. Therefore, 2 dosages are typically the most effective. Thus, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening are typical. However, you might put a little more strain on your body if you're fasting. Additionally, I would advise consolidating everything into the morning. It is commonly known as TMG anhydrase. Therefore, it will either come in powder form or in capsule form. To be honest, they both work well. It is occasionally combined with other substances. Mixing it with water is quite simple. Actually, it tastes a little bit sweet. This is the bottom line, alright? TMG is more than just a supplement. We are discussing a potent metabolic tool that operates at the most fundamental levels of your mitochondria and biology. Thus, it's assisting in the fine-tuning of your genetic expression. It involves completely rebuilding your cellular engines. It involves turning on the master metabolic switch, which determines whether energy is being burned or stored. Making your body operate smarter, not harder, is the explicit goal. I thus completed another 6G for the pancreas video, discussing how a small amount of carnosine can actually assist your pancreas function a little bit better at making insulin and ultimately help with insulin resistance. That video is exactly where I put it. Alright, this video shows you exactly how to use just 6 grams of this material. Check out that video, then keep it locked in my channel as always.